The Iran-Israel war has just got escalated. Why? Because the United States has entered the war and has joined Iran by joining Israel in striking Iranian nuclear program sites. And to talk more on this, we have our consulting editor, Dakshina Murthy, joining us from Bengaluru. Thanks a lot, Dakshin, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
My straightforward question to you, something that was inevitable, US joining in. What are your first thoughts on US strikes?
I really wouldn't call it inevitable because when you say inevitable, it means that there is an element of helplessness there. But that is not the case. It was an open decision, considered decision of the United States to act against Iran. But it is a huge strategic error as well as a tactical error. This should never have happened because the US is in no way, has in no way bothered the US. It is neither has it bothered Israel. But the fact that Israel started this whole conflict by bombing Iran, one would have imagined that it would be between Iran and Israel. But Donald Trump, in his complete unpredictable fashion, jumping into the conflict, is going to have very serious consequences, not only for the region, but for the entire world. And it was completely uncalled for. There was no reason for the US to have entered the conflict in any way, particularly because there is also a discussion, 5 rounds of discussion have been held with the US, and Iran has historically, for over the last 10 years, it has shown that it is always welcome to negotiations. It is in fact Trump who walked out of the deal in 2018, and it was entirely his call. And to add salt to the wound for Trump, to bomb Iran, I think it's completely uncalled for, and I don't think he will have many supporters for this decision other than Israel.
Right, Dakshin. And also Iran has vowed retaliation. At the same time, US has said that don't even think about it. So like you said, the escalation, do you see this thing escalating forward? Can Iran even think of, getting involved with the US in a war-like situation?
See, if you look at the balance of forces between Iran and Israel US combination, of course, Iran is far weaker than these two combined. But that does not mean that Iran will keep quiet. In fact, Iran has already fired about uh, 20 missiles or 30 missiles into Israel. And it has shown that it's going to take on this conflict. But how far they will go is to be seen, because Iran had consistently been saying that if the US enters the conflict, we will target US bases in the Middle East, of which there are many. In fact, the closest is probably Qatar. If Iran goes ahead and targets the military bases of the US in the Middle East, it's seriously going to get complicated, because it's also going to affect the sovereignty of the countries in which the military bases are housed. Number one, and number two, this will give it will be even more provocative for Donald Trump and the US to get into a bigger move, where in fact there is also a suggestion that the US is considering sending troops, into Iran. So it's really going to go out of hand. It's a difficult situation, and it's really the situation is on the edge, and it can just go any which way. Really, and Iran is in a very unenviable position, because if it does not retaliate, it would mean that Iran cannot rise up, or Iran's own self-respect, dignity is involved here, and the regime will want to show that it can, hit back at the US and Israel. It will lose its, hold over the, internally within Iran. So it's a complicated thing. It's a very multi-layered thing. So it's a very, very tough situation right now for Iran, and how it's going to react.
Right, and also a specific question over here, Dakshin. Why do you see that US has specifically bombed Iran's nuclear facilities? Are they against with Iran possessing a nuclear weapon, or if you can share details?
I would even, in fact, be more specific and say this is really not the US's action. It is more Donald Trump's action. Donald
Right.
Trump, as the president, as you know, for the last, since he took over on January 20th, has taken decisions that have completely shocked, stunned, surprised the world, even including within the United States. So this is just another of those decisions, and it is entirely Donald Trump and his group that is actually moved ahead against Iran. It is does not have the sanction of the larger United States ecosystem, like the already there are opposition is coming to this move from within the US. The Congress has not cleared it, so it is really Trump's own personal decision to do this. And the consequences are something that nobody can expect, because because Trump being so unpredictable, we really don't know where it's going to go, because no one can, if there is one leader today in the world who cannot be predicted, that is Trump, and he happens to lead the most powerful country in the world, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And also, Dakshin, I'm like you just said, that this is not possibly this is not America's decision. This is Donald Trump's decision. So at the same time, a further escalation cannot be ruled out, isn't it?
Yes, you are right, because Donald Trump is also a person with a huge ego. I mean, I don't know how big that
Yeah.
ego is, but he can simply do something which nobody can expect. So if Iran shows that it is not bending, that it is retaliating, and it is going to fight, and if it takes one more step, which is to target US military bases in the Middle East, Trump can simply, even get even more directly involved in a conflict with Iran,
Mhm.
which, by the way, in the past, even the George W. Bush administration did not want. Though there were, earlier there was a similar situation, and it almost looked like after Iraq, the US would target Iran, but they did not, because the US backed out because of the consequences of what would happen. But Trump, knowing what kind of a leader he is, can simply go ahead and he probably doesn't seem to care what the about all these niceties, or the more sober and logical thinking seems to be out of his reckoning.
Right. And one last question, Dakshin. I'm like, now coming from an Indian perspective, if these tensions, earlier it was between Israel, Iran, possibly now it has become a triangle, Israel, Iran, and then the US. So India from the outside, how does this, if these tensions continue to escalate, how will this affect India? If you can elaborate on that.
India is going to be as it's going to be affected by this quite badly, like the rest of the world. It's not just India, and India.
Yeah.
See, the Middle East is a very crucial part. In terms of even the access to the West. India's access to the West is largely through the Middle East, and India depends heavily on the oil from the Middle East. So the moment, if this worsens, it is definitely going to have an impact on India, like the rest of the world. So let's not make any bones about it, and it's going to be a very difficult time for all of us, around the world, with what Trump has done today.
Right. Thanks a lot, Dakshin, for all your inputs. Always a pleasure talking to you. So, like it all started between Israel and Iran, and now, like I said earlier, it has become a triangle with US entering the foray. How will it affect India, or possibly should India be worried? We will be continuing our undeterred live on this Israel-Iran conflict. Beg your pardon. Thanks a lot, Dakshin, once again for joining us, and for all the viewers, like, share, and subscribe to the channel.
Thank you, Abhijit.